Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're bringing you a first look at Tier 8 British tech tree heavy cruiser, HMS Bedford. Now, Wargaming has changed around how they're handling, granting us access to these ships. Once upon a time, we used to be able to see them only on the test server, PTS. We could go and we could look, but not touch. We couldn't actually play the ships. That practice over the last few months seems to have kind of dried up. So what we're doing now is, for the first time for some of these tech tree ships, we're actually getting them in our ports to actually play. So this is maybe a little later than I would have liked it, but here it is. So Bedford is coming into a very, very crowded, very busy Tier 8 cruiser scene. You see here, I've kind of filtered my port by Tier 8 cruisers at the bottom. A lot of really good options on this list. So how does she stack up? Well, let's start down the list. Survivability. 46,500 hit points we're showing right here. That's actually a little bit of a misnomer because this particular captain has survivability expert. Let me get rid of him for a minute. Send him back to his Exeter where he belongs. And that should bring that down to, right, there we go, 43,800. That is her base health at max module when you've got all the upgrades installed and everything. That ties her with Hipper. So she is tied basically for the best HP pool of any of the tech tree heavy cruisers at this tier. On top of that, you see it there, 19% torpedo protection. Again, that ties her with Amalfi for best in tier torpedo protection, which is a bit of a surprise given that the torpedo protection on the British light cruisers is historically so terrible. Armor-wise, she's actually, for a heavy cruiser at this tier, she looks pretty good. This belt you see running from all the way from turret, the aft turret here, all the way to forward of the forward barbette, 152 millimeters on this Citadel armor belt. Again, that ties her for best in tier with Wichita and Baltimore. So, I mean, from a protection standpoint, this ship is pretty solid. I mean, 19% torpedo protection, solid belt armor, a lot of health. And we aren't even done yet with the survivability. I'll get to more of that in a minute. Continue to look at briefly at her defense. Let's talk about her AA suite. Her AA suite is the best anti-aircraft suite of any non-American cruiser at Tier 8. She has a really, really good long-range aura. Her mid-range aura is a little on the weak side. Not amazing, but not great. And the short-range aura, I'd say, is fairly average. This long-range aura is what really makes her stand out. She has a better long-range aura than even the two American heavy cruisers at this tier. But what are you here for? We're here to talk about offensive, right? Like, we want to know what do we got to work with. Well, Bedford is the last tech tree British cruiser that packs 203 tech tree heavy cruiser that packs 203 millimeter guns on her turrets. And so basically she is this gun configuration, these guns, she's going to feel very similar to that in terms of how she's going to play to Wichita, Baltimore, Amalfi, and Charles Martel. All of that defense we talked about earlier, the everything, all of that comes with a bit of a price though, because these guns are not bad, but they do have some quirks. For starters, the HE shells, you can see there, 2850 on the HE shell damage, not too shabby. That puts her just a tick ahead of the Americans and the French, so roughly approximate basically. The AP shells, though, 4,500 damage puts her behind the curve of just about everybody else's 8-inch AP shells at this tier. And you see there, 814 meters per second on the shell velocity. That means her HE shells have similar performance to the American shells, the American HE shells. The Baltimore super heavy shells are even slower than this. They come out of the barrels at 760. But these AP shells, like, you can get good work out of them, but because they hit a little less, they have some slightly slower velocities than the Americans do. They're a little harder to work with at longer ranges. If you're used to Baltimore, if you've played a lot of Baltimore, you'll probably be able to make them work with a little bit of effort once you get the timing down. But it is a bit of something you're going to have to work on. Firing range, you see there, 15.7 kilometers. Fairly average, straight up average, like right across the board. 15.5, 15.3, 15.7 is pretty common. So nothing there. Hipper, Eugen, and Charles Martel all outrange this ship by almost 2 kilometers, though. But here's the thing. They can't outspot her. We'll talk about that in a minute. Torpedoes, basically the same as Edinburgh. You get the 10-kilometer torps, the 62-knot speed, the 1.3 detection, and the 10-kilometer range. These are quad launchers, so she gets an extra tube on each side over Edinburgh. So, again, these are not bad torpedoes. Handling and detection wise, we talked about her detection. This is the big selling point of this ship. Essentially, her base detection here is pretty low, and by the time you rig this ship for stealth, all the way for stealth, you get her down to 9.7. That means she actually outspots Baltimore. Only Atago outspots her, certainly in the heavy cruiser class. Well, actually, Wichita outspots her as well. But again, it's very narrow. Like, she's a very stealthy ship. So these other ships that we talked about, the Martel, the two Hippers, like, they outrange her, but she can outspot them big time. So she doesn't want to deal with them. She can just stop firing and go dark for a while. She's firmly in the middle of the pack on speed, 33 knots. Not awful, not amazing, right? Not great, not terrible. Rudder shift and turning circle are pretty average. She really does kind of handle a little bit like Eugen, in my opinion. She has a similar max speed, similar turning circle, similar rudder shift. She has a shorter overall length. So she'll feel like she changes course a little faster than she actually does, I think, because of how the overall length factors into things. Consumables-wise, you come back over here, and basically you get just this. There's no choices here, right? You get a repair party, of course. This is the fancy British super heel, so you do get this starting at Tier 8. Tier 8's the first tier. You get this on the heavy cruiser line, just like it is on the light cruiser line for the Brits. You get British Hydro. This is their destroyer Hydro, so long duration, short range, and then you get spotter plane. And this is just standard, Joe Blow spotter plane. Nothing fancy here. You don't really get a lot of the utility you get out of, say, again, a Baltimore or a Wichita. You lack the reload booster on a Martel, but you have so much survivability, right? This is a ship that is built for the long game, a long game. A Bedford is really hard to kill, and not just because she's a heavy cruiser, but because, it's the combination of everything. She has really good torpedo protection, pretty solid AA, a really, really good Citadel belt for a cruiser at this tier, and she has that British super heel. All of these things combined mean that a Bedford can be a very difficult target to get off the board. But for me, like a guy who loves heavy cruisers, I love that about her. So anyways, there you go, guys. I've got some gameplay of the ship on the channel. Have a look around. But if you're just looking for a quick overview of how she stacks up at the tier, there you go. Thanks for watching. Be safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.